Good afternoon and welcome everyone, and thank you for taking this your first step on our inaugural Careers Development Conference put on this year in conjunction between BAMEed, RS Academics and All in Education. I'd like to welcome and tell all of you, well done. You've took the first step. You're going to find out lots and lots of information as we go along today. And you're going to we're aiming to change the way that you see recruitment and change your success and put you on that pathway where you can become the next and the future head teachers, executive head teachers, deputy head teachers in the UK, leading schools and bringing impact. Now, I'd love to say I could do all of that by myself and explain to you exactly what's going to happen along this journey. I'm not able to. What I've done instead is I've got a couple friends, because you'll find out that partnership is one of the most essential parts in everything that we do. And through that partnership, we're able to achieve so much better. So it's not just Alana Gay presenting to you here today, but it's Alana Gay and some others. So let's have a brief introduction.
Hello everybody, my name is Carl Guest and I'm the headmaster here at Alton School.
Hello, my name is Evelyn Ford. I'm head teacher at Coptal School. It's an all-girls school in Mill Hill in North West London.
My name is Alison Moyes-Dixon. I am about to embark on my third headship. My first headship was in Redbridge, my second headship was in Ealing, and my third headship is going to be in Southend.
Hi, good afternoon everybody. My name is David Gajada Singh and I'm the academic and pastoral principal at the Royal Ballet School here in London.
My name is Sugra Alibai and I am the principal of Woodhouse College, and with that the CEO of the Frontier Learning Trust.
So I hope to be able to share my story with you, and I hope that it's going to be inspiring for you all.
So welcome to our Career Development Conference, and what we're going to do to get you into that mind space is to first do a few housekeeping items, because this is your opportunity to ask, to share, to get understanding. Please do, and I mean this emphatically, put as many questions into the chat as you possibly can. Anything that you're wondering about, put it in. We've got some wonderful administration who is going to support and help me to answer some of those questions, and even more, those people who are head teachers like Carl are present here in the audience today, and we are going to endeavor to make sure that you understand fully what you can do to get yourself to headship. Because I'll be honest, I want as much company as possible up at the top. I want to be able to walk into meetings and see a range of people representative of our great country inside of that environment. So let's get into that mind space. But to do that, we have to do a couple basic things. First, I'd like to point out that closed captions are available. So if you do look at the bottom of your screen, you should be able to turn on the closed caption option for those who require it. Secondly, please make sure that your microphone remains muted. There are over 100 people scheduled to be here today, and as a result, we need to make sure that we're maintaining a space where we can all be heard. Hence, we're going to use that chat function instead. Please add as many questions as possible to the chat, because that is going to be your interface where you can ask us lots of questions. We're always happy to follow up afterwards and have a conversation with you on a more personalized basis. And hopefully lots of you have signed up for the mentoring that's going to happen on Saturday, so that you have that chance to talk about your personal journey. But what we're looking at today is how do we bring someone to that point of thinking and recognition of what that journey is going to be like. We are recording for the purposes of sharing parts of this discussion. Not all of it is going to be shared, but parts that we think are essential. And that's going to be placed onto the BAMEed website. So please be aware that aspects of this and this program and conference across the week will be recorded. Now, when we came up with this idea, it was a very interesting conversation that I had with Russell Spears. And he was thinking, well, we are leading recruiters and we think that we should be doing this right. I want to be able to put out diverse lists. But where am I going to find those leaders? Because it's not within his sphere at the moment or at that point in time. We at BAMEed, we're looking from the other end and going, Well, we know lots of ethnic minority leaders and people who want to go into leadership, but we don't know how to connect them to the jobs that are necessarily available. And we don't know what support we need to put in place in order to ensure that they can demystify that entire process. So we decided on a collaboration, and we thought to ourselves, well, what are the risks that BAME educators are going to face around progression? Some of us have very common stories, and some of us will find as we go along that we're very different. But at some point, we all face up to one thing, that our heritage and our individualism and who we are and our cultures need to blend with the person that we are as a leader. i.e., when we lead, we wish to be our authentic selves. And how do you present that in an audience or to an audience that's not necessarily looking at those aspects? How do I present that to a recruiter to get them to recognize that I am competent, I am capable, I am absolutely the best person for this post and this job and this school and this community, even though I may not be the person you first thought of? How do I get recruiters to think differently? What are those assumptions that we're making? I will admit, I'll hold my hands up and say, I made wide assumptions about what it would be like in a rural school. It's probably why I maintained most of my career in a city. I make wild assumptions about some of the governing bodies that I will meet. I make assumptions based on what I see on school websites. I make assumptions based on the pictures I see for those trustees and governing bodies and what I know of those schools. And in the same way, those governing bodies, those recruiters, those SLT or senior leadership team members who are part of recruitment will also be making some assumptions about the person that's in front of them. Assumptions about names, assumptions about education, assumptions about how well this person will be accepted into a community. So we need to look at the levels of assumption that we each make and see how do we move beyond that? How do we get to think much more deeply about what we are and what we aim to be? And then we came down to the nitty-gritty, because BAMEed is all about the action. We look at what we can have as an active purpose and how we can make change happen through active participation. And that's where RS Academics and All in Education stepped up and said, well, here are the things that we can tackle immediately. And then let's start thinking about what we can do to make that change stick, make it permanent, make it part of the long term. And what would that solution be dependent on? Well, you'll know part of our thinking because some of you participated in our focus groups that took place over a few weeks. And I thank you for that participation because it helped to reinforce some of the ideas that we had, and it gave us even more ideas to think about when thinking about recruitment to deputy and headship within this space. And we utilized that to come up with a basic plan because we tried not to overcomplicate it too much. It never goes really well when you overcomplicate it. So what did we do? We said, well, this is our positive action. And right now, you are part and parcel of the positive action that we are taking. And how does that work? Well, simple process. We're going to find educators for whom this is the time. We're going to convince them and make them absolutely sure that this is their time. And if it's not, we're going to tell them what they need to do in order for it to become their time. Because you have to be ready to step up to leadership. And you have to be confident to step up to leadership. But that confidence doesn't come in a vacuum. That confidence comes from knowing that you have those people behind you and knowing that you are standing on the shoulders of those who come before you and knowing that there are support systems in place to ensure your very success. But where are those steps to success? Well, this is our first conference, so we've taken a very traditional route in that sense. We've begun our focus with looking at, well, how do you get to deputy headship? How do you go from that place where you're an assistant head and you have a singular focus and you are building that into a specialism across a whole school to becoming a deputy head, where you're line managing lots of people with different foci, in their impact across the whole school, you are effectively working for the head teacher and sometimes working as the head teacher in very much different contexts. How do we demystify? How do you get into that step and be successful at getting into that step and be successful at being a deputy head teacher? From there, we went for the obvious. We want more head teachers. Currently in the UK, the statistics are at exactly the same place, or roughly the same place that they've always been. We are the 1%ers, 1% Black, 1% Asian, 1% for everyone else. That needs to improve and that needs to change, because you cannot have a profession where half of the entrants that enter into profession will have no chance of ever making it to headship. We need to make sure that we have a pipeline that's going to allow headship to be one of those aspirations that lots of people have, but also an achievable one. So our next step was, well, if we can get people to deputy headship, how do we get them into headship itself? How do we get them to understand the differences that there are between deputy and headship? Get them to understand the differences in the recruitment process. Who takes part in it? What activities do you have to do? How do you sell the experiences that you have had as an individual to convince a body of people that you are the right person whose values, ethics, morals, and achievement will match to what they want for their school? So we decided, let's look at that step. And obviously, if I'm going to talk about getting people to that step and demystifying the recruitment process, there is a lot of work to be done about those who handle recruitment. So I would like to welcome all of the governors, all of the trustees, all of the senior leadership people, all of the HR experts, all of you who are responsible for recruitment. But I want you to take note of how our focus on recruitment is going to be. We do not deal in the tokenistic. We do not deal in the fad, because those are short-lived and they do not sustain, and they will not sustain within our education environment. For you, our recruiters, your Thursday session is going to focus on how do you strategically become inclusive. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that what you hear across this week is going to be a mind-blowing moment that is going to set you up for the rest of your life. No. Because you have to do the work. You have to follow up. We are going to put you onto the pathway of positive action, but you have to take that further. You have to use that drive that you have, that desire for change, and make change happen. And that holds whether you're going to deputy headship, whether you're looking at getting into headship, or whether you're looking at your recruitment practices and thinking, why are we not culturally, ethnically diverse? What are we doing? What do we need to change? And how do I ensure that that change happens? So there's some essential things to remember. A lot of what you hear across this week is going to be UK focused, because when we envisioned this career development conference, we focused on our own area within the UK. So to all of those who are joining us internationally, there will be a UK focus going throughout. There are lots of ideas that are global, as we very well know, and I would want you to take those and shape that into what works within your context. Secondly, we're working together. You need to put questions into the chat so that we can share ideas with you. We have expertise available. You need to come out and grab it. Take that opportunity and make that yours. Take ownership of this week. Take ownership of every session. Get as much out of every speaker, every presenter, every head teacher, every recruiter, every person that you meet across this week. You need to get as much as possible out of them to ensure that you can get to where you need to be. Not where you want to be, where you need to be. You need to be ready for action, because this is not a passive process. Passivity has never made change happen. You have to be active participants in determining your future. And there are the people around you. There are the recruiters, there are the governors who are seeking to make change happen. So it's all about you preparing yourself to move into that space. Be ready for action. Small part of that is to make sure that you're registered in the right places. So if you have registered on Tuesday, make sure that you're attending your session that's going to deal with how to get into deputy headship. Those ideas will be essential. If you're registered on Wednesday, then you're looking at headship specifically and what is your next step to get into headship. And for all of our governors, recruiters, your introduction to being strategically inclusive is going to occur on Thursday. Now, on Saturday, we have an army of mentors that are scheduled, ready, and waiting to work with you and offer you our three free sessions that we offer at BAMEed for your mentoring. Personalized for you to have discussion and for you to have some level of mentoring and sometimes coaching towards your aim. Use it well. Make sure that that's the opportunity that you are working with an expert in the field to find out what's going to be your next step, to clarify your thoughts, to make sure that what you're writing, what you're expressing, what you're feeling is clear and your authentic self is being placed upon that application. And attend every session ready to participate. This is no time to be shy. This is the time for you to move into the sector where you belong. So let's think now about how do we know that you are ready to even be a part of education and a part of headship and deputy headship.
Really, for me, it was about being in a school that was 85% African-Caribbean and being able to, as a role model, really lead and make sure that diversity and equity was at the heart of my leadership. And that the children could see that, yes, this was a Black woman who had dreadlocks, not the typical sort of view of what most people would conjure up in their minds when they saw a head teacher, but that she would be effective and she would work really hard and make sure that they achieved their best outcomes possible. So it was an interesting shift.
I think that experience of the emotional part of leadership, where it's about understanding people and being able to support the community during times of challenge, felt like a really kind of key moment for me, and helped me, I suppose, want to take that next step in applying for headships.
So one of the reasons I decided that I wanted to aim for senior leadership was because I'd been a head of year at a girls' school in North London, and I really enjoyed the experience. I really noted the impact I was having on a group of girls. There are about 250 of them and a team of staff. And I just realised at that point that the difference that I was able to make for 250 students, well, I really figured that I could do it more widely. And I was keen, and I didn't see people in senior leadership that looked like me. And I just thought, I would bring my experience and I would aim for the dizzy heights of leadership.
I think the most fundamental idea is the influence that I've been able to share with the young people in my care. The idea of being a form teacher all the way through in different responsibilities that I've been lucky enough to have. I've had the opportunity to share in the lives of the young and to influence their pathway, and to be able to do that on a greater scale is just a sheer privilege.
People have said to me, you never quite feel ready. And I waited a while before making applications, just because I knew I really wanted to do the job to a standard that I would be really happy with and feel really confident with. And so, you know, I made applications once I felt I'd had the breadth of experience across senior roles. And yeah, I mean, I had to be encouraged into making applications. I'm not going to lie. I think that that's something that, you know, Black and minority ethnic candidates, female candidates will often kind of worry about not being good enough. So, you know, I've been blessed with, you know, retired ex-head teacher friends kind of encouraging me to take that step and believing me and encouraging me. So these allies were sort of saying to me, look, Sabra, you're ready, give it a crack. You know, and I was supported with making applications, and for that I'll always be very, very grateful.
One of the most important aspects of making that decision is looking for new challenges. For me, it was about looking at a more strategic role, having a sort of more strategic outlook in terms of how the school was going to develop, looking to make a difference to the students across a whole school level rather than just interdepartmental and so on. And like all teachers, we're in it to improve the outcomes for our young people. And so to have that strategic outlook across a much wider range of activities across the school was one of the most important things that drove me to applying for my first head.
I don't know whether anyone ever really knows as to whether you are ready. I think you are ready for the challenge, and I think that you put yourself in a position where you feel passionately about what you do, you feel passionately about the young people in your care, and you make that decision. There are imposter syndrome moments where you wonder, why me, why here? But it's the challenge that I love, and so that's the reason why I'm here.
And I think that's something that I can echo. So when I decided, actually, do you know what? I think I'm going to move into deputy headship, and I'm going to move further into headship itself. I did have to wonder, am I sure that I'm ready? Have I learned everything? So that same hesitance that is something that we all have, that imposter syndrome that sets in going, but remember when you did this really badly? And remember what you've done this, and you haven't learned this part yet. And there's so much that you're still missing, that you convince yourself that you're still missing, that you put it off and off and off until you get to the point that you lose confidence and you wonder, is it really for me? It looks like a really hard job. It looks like it's really long hours. But think about the reward and think about all of those things that you're going to get from being a part of that system, of making your own decisions and making strategic decisions that's going to improve the life for students. So when we're thinking about the journey, it's going to be a very variable journey for all of us. For some of us, it's a straight ladder. You pretty much get on one rung and you start walking along, and it's like, yep, I've done this, and I'm hitting targets, I'm ticking boxes, I've got the next level of training, excellent, I'm going to get to the next stage. But for people like me, I have to say it was more along a broken ladder where I started climbing. I was really worried I was going to fall. Every time I came down, I had to think, right, how am I going to get back up to the next step where I was? I had issues of confidence. I had issues within the schools itself in a toxic environment. And then I had to think about, well, what is it within my leadership journey that is going to help me build up to that next level? And it's those things that you heard Sugar and Carl mention, things like that network around you, that drive, that desire, as David said, wanting to be a part of the strategic solutions. But you have to recognize that even on that broken journey, you are picking up pearls of wisdom that's going to allow you to be successful in the future. Let me tell you a little story. It's really short, so don't worry. When I was at a secondary school, it was a really toxic work environment. I used to be at the school at 8 in the morning, and then I used to leave the school at 9 at night because that's when the school keeper used to come to lock up. I was put in charge of an area that I really never wanted to be in charge of, which is pastoral, attainment, attendance, behavior, SEN. And I spent hours and hours working myself to the bone, trying to figure out what I do, because I'd done what I traditionally do. I put my head down and I just keep working and I go, someone will notice that I'm doing really well. This is going to be worth it. It'll be really worth it when I get to the next level. But what happened instead is that at some point, the governors walked in and said, actually, we're going to make all of you redundant because we've hired a new head teacher and we want a new team. And that was it. I had a moment to decide, are you going to continue on this journey towards being a leader? Or is this it? Because to be quite honest, Alana, I'm tired. So you have those moments when you doubt yourself. You have those moments when challenges are put in your way. But I can say to you this, the same resilience and the same self-belief and the same courage and the same network that I have, who reinforced me, who allowed me to think, what is it that you morally and genuinely believe in? They're the ones who help me bolster myself to the point that now anything that comes in Headship, I'm like, yeah, don't worry, it'll get better. Pandemic, don't worry, it'll get better. Let's do this. And everyone goes, how can you remain so calm when there's so much going on around you? And I go, if you only knew the journey that I had on that broken ladder to get here, you'd understand why resilience is one of my most powerful weapons that I have. Being calm, decision-making, quick decision-making, reform of decisions, that's one of the most powerful things I have. Knowing that my moral purpose is to ensure that every child gets the best education possible from their circumstance. You would understand that if you understand my journey. So some of you here will be on that same ladder. Some of you will be on that broken journey that has so many rivets and different turns, and you don't climb it like a normal ladder. You don't just go straight up and hold the sides and walk up. You have to navigate your way so carefully that you can ensure that you get to the top, and that perseverance will pay off because it will give you those skills that you need in order to be the best head teacher that you need to be in the future. But the idea is, how do I take that journey and present it to someone else? Because let's face it, most recruiters are looking for an unbroken ladder. They're looking for something that's really easy, straightforward, that they understand fully. Don't hide the journey you've been on. Instead, embrace it and shape it. And across this week, we will be helping you think about how you can embrace and shape and make that into one of those advantages, because it becomes one of the most powerful tools for any head teacher. Let's talk about the next issue. Familiar one. Everyone wants me to succeed until they don't want me to succeed. I've reached the ceiling. What do I do next? Now, we've all had a moment somewhere in our career when we've looked at where we are and thought, I think I could do that next job. I know I can be a deputy head. I knew that I could be a deputy head long before anyone appointed me to that post. And similarly, I knew that I could be a head teacher long before anyone put me into that post. Why? Because I had that self-belief and confidence, and I built up my skills to the point that I could recognize I could lead most of this, and what I can't lead, I'll learn because I'm a very good learner. How many of you can identify with that? You're in a position where you know what you're doing and it's become so routine, you understand excellence. But you also understand that you're ready for that next step. But you don't know how to push against that ceiling and not break yourself. How do I get past that barrier and make sure that I'm able to be successful and I'm able to move up to that next level and make that next step? Across this week, this is going to be part of your journey. So pay attention and bring your stories, bring your ideas, bring them all and present them. Because you'd be surprised about what part of that ceiling and pushing against that ceiling is what is going to be the essential point for you to break that ceiling altogether. And then once you've crossed the ceiling, it's the cliff. It will get easier, but it gets harder first. Because when we look across recruitment, ethnic minority or people of BAME heritage are more likely to be hired into positions when they're more likely to fail. I took over a failing school and I had to turn it around. And that's what I did. And that's what I'm doing now. You will hear many others who have taken over schools where recruiters have said they didn't know what else to do, so they brought in this person and they took a chance. Now, to my recruiters, I'd say, how beautiful would it be if you did not have to reach that point to where you're only taking a chance on a leader? To my people heading towards deputy and headship in itself, how great would it be to be on stable ground? But the reality is, most likely, you're going to be on a glass cliff. And from that cliff, you need to make sure that you have a security net. Well, that's pretty much what we are here to do. We are your security net. Myself, Johan, Russell, Barry, Andrea, Carl, Evelyn, every one of us, we are here to be a part of being your safety net and to help to guide you towards that success, but not just cliff edge success, where the slightest of failures will make you fall all the way down to the bottom and doubt yourself. But that success that can help you network and find problem-solving issues. I hold my hands up. As a head teacher, I do not know everything, nor do I have the desire to know everything. What I do know is that I have a strong enough network around me that if there is something that I don't know, I can find someone who I trust that will know and will share that knowledge with me. Imagine having that power in the network and the people around you so that you are able to be successful because everyone else around you is rooting for you. You have that right now. You've accessed that right now just by your presence here today and across this week. So my message to you is don't accept being denied. If you are told you can't go on to CPD, guess what? There's lots of CPD that you can do externally. Find it, be a part of it, become certified and become better. There are lots of organizations that will provide quality professional development opportunities that you can take to get to your next step. You have an entitlement to feedback, so go and seek it. But please do remember, feedback is a gift. But with that gift, not every gift that you get is a gift that's going to make you overjoyed. So go seek feedback from your mentors on Saturday or in the future. Make sure that you're asking the right questions. If you need opportunities to shadow, approach us and ask us and look for those opportunities. When you're told tomorrow or Wednesday what you should be putting into your interviews, how you should be presenting yourself, what you need to think about on your journey to present, believe what the people are telling you and have the opportunity to change your way of operation and change what you do. You have an entitlement to feedback, and therefore you need to use that feedback. And I'll say as well to those who are governors, there is an entitlement to feedback. And part of that is quality feedback. If after a recruitment process, you're unable to provide quality feedback to a candidate, then I beg of you, please question your actual process. Because what kind of process brings you to a judgment that you cannot justify? Set a time limit for yourself. Think of how you're going to act in various positions and how you're going to continue to develop yourself. Don't fall into the lull of comfort. The lull of comfort is knowing exactly what you're doing. It's easy work. The pay is enough. I've figured out all my Maslow's hierarchy. I've got everything going. So why do I need to do anything else? Think more about why you are in this career, why you have chosen this pathway, and set a time limit for every action that you're taking within a position, whether it be from a project that you decide to run within your school to give you a whole school experience, or whether you decide to become a governor of another school so you can get strategic experience. Keep a record of your achievements, and I cannot emphasize this enough. There is a lot that you learn on your journey that you don't actually record or remember. There are lots of experiences that you have had that would have been negative experiences at the time, but would have built a value inside of you that you are able to do so much better. Keep a diary, keep the letters, have a section in your emails where you keep all your votes of thanks so that you're able to remember all of the things that you've done, all of the areas where you've worked, and all of the skills you've developed over time. And be proactive around the barriers you will face. Every single leader you meet is going to say, at some point, you think about your race when you're in an interview, especially if you walk into an interview room and the entire panel is white. That's okay. Be proactive about that. Mention what your cultural contribution will be to enriching the school. Mention what you have learned in your own education, if coming from overseas. Mention all those things that make you, you, and be confident in doing so. Learn the landscape you want to operate within. And when I say learn the landscape, there is a lot of learning that needs to be had. So you need to know what's happening in the main areas of education, not just within your own bubble, not just within your own school. There are many times when I have to say, your school is not what education looks like. Your classroom is not what education looks like. There are so many different models and styles and ideas that can be used in different situations. Get to know them, either informally through your discussions with various head teachers within networks, or even on Twitter. Great learning place most of the time. But make sure that you're well aware of what's happening in education and formulate strong ideas on how to navigate through those issues. And widen your range of expertise. There was a time, I will tell you, when I would have, actually I can say this now. There are lots of people, if you ask them and said, Alana teaches and is head teacher of a 3 to 11 school, those people will laugh. 14 years in secondary practice, teaching science and maths, bringing logic to the world. And then I moved into primary practice. To widen my range of expertise, I only came to stay for 2 years. And I've been here now, I'm on to my 5th year. Why? Because what you learn doesn't go away. It's just in a different context. And as you apply from one context to the other, you discover so much about all those different phases of education. So you can't become a deputy head teacher in secondary. Okay, try deputy headship in a primary. 1, you become a learner again. 2, you can enrich the lives because you know exactly what those children are headed towards. And 3, it's a whole load of fun. And it helps you to develop your leadership in itself. Similarly, if you're not getting your headship in a mainstream school, well, if it's not a state school, try an independent school. They're wonderful to work within. There are lots of opportunities for your own ideas. And you have some excellent students who will be there around you, where you can really push the idea of the cultural contribution in tangent with the traditions that they have. Or if you can't get a state school, a special school. There are so many different types of schools that we have. There is no reason for us to limit our expertise to simply one type. So widen your range of expertise and think more widely about the choices you are making of the schools you're going to be in. You never know what that pathway is going to be like, but it can be so very different because opportunity knocks through and walks through different doors. You have to be able to speak beyond your own school. That is simply one context. So again, I cannot emphasize enough, learn the landscape of education. And in doing so, you will find something that you probably never considered, an area that you might really love and enjoy. And finally, I'm going to say, stand on the shoulders of leaders who share your values. I stand on the shoulders of all those people who came before me and had to work really hard and face extreme racism when they were in education as leaders. And through their sacrifice and their ideas and discussion with them, I knew what I was looking out for. I would be remiss in my purpose if I did not send that ladder back down a little bit more straightened to help someone else get to the level where I am quicker than I did. That would fill me with joy. That's my main purpose in BAMEed. I want all of you to accelerate through deputy headship, through headship, get an executive headship, and I will be the first person to applaud you. Absolutely celebrate. And every leader that you have met today in the videos, those who are present in the room, they all want the same. We are all here for your success, and everything we put in place is to ensure that the person coming after me has it a little bit easier than I had. And that is how I know change is happening. Because when I think of how many governors, how many trustees are a part of the discussion about racial equity in education, and how many of them are thinking about their practice, I have to feel a lot happier, because it is so much better than when I was applying for deputy headship or for headship in itself. And that's only a few years ago. So as it improves and the landscape becomes better and better, stand on the shoulders of us leaders who share your values, and we will be there to help and support. So let's now think about how we develop that even further, and what it looks like to be an ethnic minority leader in our current education system.
I mean, I think for me, it feels like a real privilege. It feels a real privilege to be a Black woman, as I said, who wears dreadlocks, slightly bigger than usual, and I think doesn't conform to whatever that stereotype may be in people's minds as to what a head teacher is. And so for me, that's really important, because as we have heard many times, if we can't see it, we can't be it. So really important, not just for the young women, but for the young men as well, who I work with, to see that a successful Black woman can lead a school and to do that really well. In my second headship, it was quite interesting. Not long after I joined, one of the members of staff spoke to a group of students and said that the new head teacher is big, black and scary. So, you know, that racism, those stereotypes, it doesn't fall away. And it's something that you have to challenge along the way.
I feel like I've been able to be myself and be my whole authentic self, which has been a real pleasure and a blessing. I think sometimes candidates from Black and minority ethnic heritage or female candidates will think that they have to conform to a particular sort of leadership style. And actually, my one bit of advice to everybody is to lean into your own strengths and lean into being your authentic self and being proud of your authentic self.
I don't think there's an issue in terms of when you're appointed. I think the more difficult and more interesting question, I suppose, is how you get appointed. I think it's far more difficult to get the interviews. And it's more difficult, I think, getting your foot in the door, getting the job in the first place. But I think when you're here, I think that those decisions have been made. I suppose the only negative that I can draw upon in my career is that you do overhear, not personally, but have reported to you, sometimes some comments from some parents, which to me are just ignorant comments more than anything else, and sort of flippant.
So when I did become a head teacher, a Black female head teacher in an all-girls school in, Northwest London, it's been phenomenal. And I have to say that I see myself as a role model for the girls here at Coptal. I think in terms of the community, real diverse community, but for many of our families, for them to see a Black woman leading a school, and they put their trust in me, and I think that it was really important for the community as well, and also for staff, because again we've got a very diverse staff body, so I think it's been great. It hasn't been without its challenges, but I think, you know, to be leading an all-girls school, you know, as a Black woman, I think sends a really positive message to the community, but most importantly to the children that I serve.
Again, maybe getting over the initial shock that I was actually appointed. If I think about my life as a Londoner born and bred, working in London and around London all the time, and then to consider that I was actually appointed headmaster of a school in pretty much a very white, middle-class rural Hampshire. The shock, I think, is for me to get over. The community have been welcoming, they've been warm, they've been so inviting to me and to everything that I stand for. And so I just look forward to the future of what we can do together.
And again, we can see the shock is something for me to get over. Sometimes we put those stereotypes. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some stereotypes that exist, and there are some people who still bask in the ignorance of racism. However, your presence, what you do, your work is what's going to be your exemplar. And that's what's going to make you welcome within all of those communities. And when I say communities, I mean varied communities. One of the things that I really love is that Alison Moyes-Dixon is moving from a London-based context, and she's going to work in Southend, down in a coastal school. You've got Carl Guest, who is working in middle class, as he said, white, predominantly white, middle class area coming out of London. All of these people have made changes, and they know that they're going to face some level of discrimination, but they prepared themselves because by just their presence, the governors have already made that decision and have already built in that level of support. So then it comes down to what David said. Well, pretty much we need to be thinking, how do you get to those levels? How do you get that application in? And how do you get shortlisted? And those are the aspects that we really need to define, not on those stereotypes that we hold and those assumptions that we build around other schools. I can tell you, when I moved into the independent sector from mainstream schools, having spent 16 years, I've been teaching there really long, 16 years in mainstream and then moving into the independent sector, I prepared myself for a bit of racism because I said to myself, okay, they're going to say A, she comes from a state school, B, she has an accent, she's from overseas, and C, she's Black. And all of those things are going to pose an issue because in the stereotype and tradition of what we think of the independent sector, those are things that just don't fit. They don't fit the stereotype. What I found was a totally different experience, a very welcoming community who are very happy, students who are happy to find out so much about me as much as I find out about them, and education within a community in itself. And that's what I think we need to remember that we bring into this aspect as well. We bring those ideas of success and those ideas where people can be even better than they originally were. And those schools get to be even better than they originally were. And when you face those issues of stereotyping and racism, you're able to know and stand on your greatness because you know that you're bringing excellence into that sphere. That is not something that you need to be afraid of and something that you treat with fear, but something that we face up to and we find our courage. Now, you have to remember that you're not one thing and everything you are is an asset. Every single part of you is what you bring into deputy and headship. Every single part of you is what a recruiter and a governor and HR should be looking for. And all those identities are what come together to make that unique asset that is you. How do you present that to a panel? Do you present that with fear, going, oh, well, yeah, I am educated abroad, but I really know a lot about English system? Or do you present that with pride? I was educated abroad, so therefore I have a wider understanding of lots of education systems. And it fascinates me how we can build your school into a really powerful one. That's not just local, but global. Build that into yourself, because every single thing you are is an asset to school. Harness your courage, because this is a journey for the courageous. And this is a journey where you build your courage. And even if you doubt yourself, find the people in your network, or come to BAMEed network, or come to RS Academics or All in Education, and we will help you realize how wonderful you are and how great you should be. And consider yourself. Don't limit yourself in your choice of schools. There are so many. The UK has a compendium of different school types, all of which can fit some person, whether it's a forest school, a Montessori, an independent school, a coastal school, a rural school, inner city school, an outer city school. There are so many different types. Why limit yourself to just one? Widen your expertise, know the landscape, and don't limit yourself based on stereotyping. Don't limit your choice of positions. There are so many names for deputy head nowadays. There's head of school, there is deputy principal, there's associate principal. There's so many different names and so many different positions that you could be looking at. Keep your applications going, and I have to stress, this is probably going to be the hardest, the easiest to say, the hardest to do. Because after you get rejection and rejection and rejection, it becomes hard to pick yourself up. But I'll tell you, in my first year of deciding I wanted to go for Headship, I did not get a job. I got shortlisted for about 3 of the 6 applications I put out. And then I had to go to my network to ask, and I can name them, people like Patrick Otley O'Connor and Marie, to have a look at my application and tell me what I was doing wrong. And then after I fixed that part about just getting the interviews, I then had to look at what I was doing in the interviews. And I went for, it would be about 4 to 5 interviews before I ended up in the post where I am now. And going from interview to interview, making it through, especially those ones when you make it down to the final 2 or 3, and then you're rejected. It's heartbreaking, and there is an emotional toll that you need to acknowledge and recognize and share with someone so that you can have that clarity of emotion to pick yourself up and go again, because it is a continual battle, and that is an emotional battle that you must acknowledge. Think creatively about how you want to shape jobs and how you pitch jobs. Pitch it around yourself, for an example. Don't necessarily go look at a job description and think everything is standard. And ask questions that will challenge at interview. Because if you exist in a school where you're not, if you start that you can't challenge the interview panel, how are you going to place any challenge into that school when you need to? And believe that recruiters, it's a lot about belief. There are recruiters and people who are involved in recruitment and governance who are here with us today, and they are showing that they're actively looking to be more inclusive. So believe that they are. Believe that your colleagues are far more inclusive and your community is going to be incredibly accepting. There's a lot of work being done in loads of schools to look at how they are accepting cultural and ethnic inclusion. How are they becoming racially inclusive? Through their curriculum, but even more fundamentally, through understanding identity and belonging, and through their culture that they pertain across the school. And when people show you who they are, please do believe them. I'm sure you heard that one before. Make sure that when you approach people and they say, yes, I want to help you, believe them. Don't think, oh, but I don't want to take up so much of your time. I wouldn't have offered if I didn't mean it. And participate in the networks that exist to support you and build you and bring you to your next level. And that can be an external network like BAMEed. It can be an internal network like your network of friends who you trained with in ITT. But have a strong network around you who can help and encourage you to thrive and be really successful in what you do in education. So I think that's enough about me talking about people in education and what we're about to do, etc. Let's have a think now about how we get a whole strategy going, how we make sure that everyone around us is ready to build. So at this point, I'd like to find, can you find for me Kirsty Ebbs? Kirsty, if you could unmute yourself.
Hi, Alana. Hi, everyone.
Okay, go ahead, Kirsty. All yours.
Thank you. Have you got my slides?
Oh, I do not think so.
Okay. I can share or I can just run through.
If I hand over to Josie, Josie, can you share, please?
Hello, Kirsty.
Hi.
You should be able to, can you see the green buttons on the bottom of your screen?
Yeah.
Lovely. Okay, yep, we can see that now.
Fantastic. Yep, you got it in big,
we can
screen. See. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. I think the technical side was going far too well. So, hi, my name's Kirsty. I work for the National Governance Association and the PR manager, and I'd like to build on what Alana's already mentioned about how you can, you might want to consider becoming a governor or a trustee in another school as part of your professional development. So, thank you, Alana, for inviting me to speak today and for your wonderful keynote session, and also to the leaders that have shared their journey with us and through the videos today. It really is a pleasure to be here. And you, of course, are here because you're exploring and devising your own journey into becoming a head teacher or a deputy head teacher. And I'd like to talk about some of the benefits of governing in a different school or a different trust as part of building your skills and your experience, and really putting governance on your radar as an option as you are deciding on your career path and how you might do that. So, governance might be something you know lots about or know a little bit about already. You might already be governing in a different school, or you might have experience as a staff governor, or it might be a completely new possibility for you. And at the end of this slide, I hope that I can leave each of you with something to take away. So whether that's sparking your curiosity to find out more about the role, the inspiration to sign up and to volunteer right away, or perhaps if you do already govern, give you a prompt to encourage a colleague or a connection to consider doing the same as well. So I hope there's something for everybody here. And the slides are moving, which is great. I hope they're moving for you too. So as the membership body supporting school governance, volunteers and professionals, NGA, of course, know there are lots of great reasons for education professionals to govern elsewhere. There are benefits for you, there are benefits for your school, and there are benefits for the governing board that you might wish to join. And I'm going to touch on some of those great reasons now, some of those that you can see on screen, by sharing the words of a few of your fellow teachers and leaders who we've spoken to over the course of the past couple of years, about why they govern and what they get from it. So firstly, being a governor is a long-term professional development opportunity. It's free, which is always great. It's really varied, and of course it's external to your school, and there's an opportunity to have an immediate and practical impact. So as a governor or trustee, you could be looking at a variety of projects or topics depending on the context, the community, the circumstances, or the priority facing the school whose board you join. And of course, working with that school as it responds to what's going on in the wider education sector and across society. And there's also the opportunity to work with a wide range of people. So this isn't a one-off course or a few sessions. It's something that you'll be involved in for a while. Of course, you are free to leave at any point should you wish to, but it is something that's going to last longer than a few hours or a few weeks. Okay, it's also a great way to develop strategic leadership skills. So we describe this as being eyes on, hands off, whereas in your professional lives, of course, you'll be very used to the operational side. So things like setting a strategy, holding an executive leader to account, looking at budgets and resources, looking at lots of data and information, and engaging with the community to shape the decisions that boards are making. So it's a great place to start to develop some of those strategic level skills. And it's also a great way in which to develop personal skills, which are useful in all sorts of situations and roles. So things like questioning and leadership as a governor, be part of the school's leadership team, teamwork, so working with people from all sorts of different professional backgrounds, and also strategic planning. And there are lots of reasons why you might choose to govern, and why the people that we've spoken to do choose to govern. So some are looking for that opportunity to develop the strategic skills, but for others, the motivation really is to extend the impact that you can make as an educator. So making a difference to even more pupils and to more communities. So you might just be, excited by that challenge. You want a new challenge and a new place to apply your skills and your values, and to really stretch and challenge your thinking, which I know can be really healthy and just, helps to bring a bit more joy to your role as well, by knowing that you're making even more of a difference. Okay, as Alana's already mentioned, that understanding what's going on in education, how policies and the external environment is affecting different schools, and then how, of course, the schools are navigating the impact of those changes on staff and pupils is really important for aspiring leaders. And governing in a different school will give you exposure to doing that. So you'll be sharing practice across schools, gaining an external view and really seeing how others do things, whether that's in different phase, a different community, a different type of school, a different context. And you'll also have the opportunity there to work with other head teachers or CEOs and senior leadership teams to see their practice and the opportunity to learn for them as well. Okay. Governing also gives you a way to be part of that strategic solution sooner, so helping to keep schools guided on the right path, contributing to those decisions, and offering your skills and expertise to give direction to schools to ensure that children and young people have the brightest future, which is why most of the people who volunteer as a governor choose to be there, and which is, of course, why you each have gone into your profession as well. So it really nicely ties that together. And I think finally, Rob says that governing in a different school is truly continuous CPD in the best form of it. Those are his words, but obviously I agree. And shows how doing all of that we've discussed, those skills development, strategic leadership, really gives you an opportunity to reflect on your practice and to shape that as well, bringing that back into your day-to-day role. So one of the great things about joining the board of another school is that it benefits you, but it benefits the governing board that you're joining, and it develops your school where you're employed too. So you'll be bringing your specialist skills into your governing role, whether that's special educational needs, whether that's data, whether that's safeguarding, whatever that is, will be feeding into the support and challenge that you're offering to the school and that you're offering to head teachers as well. And that support and challenge, of course, will be coming from a place of your knowledge and experience from working in schools. And of course, in the same way that you can gain an understanding of a different school, a different context, you'll be bringing that to the board and the school that you join as well. So they'll be learning from you too. And of course, you'll also be able to contribute your perspective on how the decisions, the policies, the choices that the board's making, how that actually can impact the staff working in schools too, and how those cultures and practices can can come through kind of from the other side of the coin. So you'll be able to wear both hats in this role. And of course, working with the board, you'll also get that experience of governance, just what boards do. And as was mentioned earlier, the board will be the body that's recruiting, making the decision about appointing the head teacher. So working with the board really gives a good exposure to understanding their perspective and how that process works as well, and can really help to get ahead there. So finally, I hope I've given you an insight into how being a governor in a different school or trust can contribute to your leadership journey, and why your skills, expertise and experiences are going to be welcomed by both board and by your school, if this is something you want to do. So the web link's there. If you are interested in finding out more, visit that page to find out more about the role of governing boards and some of what you can expect, the commitment, because of course it is a commitment to make as well to the voluntary role, and how to sign up.
Thank you so much, Kirsty. So what I'm going to emphasize again is this idea of becoming a governor. Now, before I got to my headship, I was a governor in 2 schools. Why? Because if they're going to say that you don't know enough about finance, become a governor, you have to look over the budgets. If they're going to say you don't know about marketing a school, become a governor, you have to learn how to market schools. I didn't know anything about multi-academy trusts and their structures. I became a governor. I learned all about that. Every single part of governance teaches you every single strategic step that you need to know for headship. Why would you not become a governor? You're also going to have that opportunity to share with others everything that they need, everything that school needs, and what they can do in order to become even better. So you're going to get that benefit of knowing everything whole school. After you have been a governor for a year, probably even less, there is nothing they can ask you in an interview that you would not have come across before, because we cover everything in governance. Everything about the school strategy is covered. Now, I've had a lot of conversation about what we're doing and why we decided to do it. So I'm going to introduce to you the 2 men who are now in my lives. And those 2 men are people who are going to change the status quo. So please allow me to introduce you to Russell Spears, who is the lead of RS Academics, about why they're getting involved. Because I'm going to tell you this, across this week, you are going to see lots of white faces. And I'm not going to apologize for that, because recruitment is currently predominantly white. And the people that are going to be sitting across the table from you are going to be predominantly white. And the people to demystify their thinking for you need to be exactly the same. So you are going to get a lot of those faces, but the information they give you is what is going to allow us to make change happen for the next generation coming. So allow me to proudly introduce Russell Spears and Johan for them to share about why they're getting involved in this careers conference in the first place. Russell?
Great. Well, thank you very much, Alana. Before I introduce myself and say a little bit about why we're involved, I would just like to thank Alana and her colleagues at BAMEed, but particularly Alana. Thank you for everything you've done to make this event possible. Thank you for a really brilliant talk, very uplifting and really full of practical advice as well. And thank you for the fun that we've had in organising this and working together over the last few weeks, and I hope in the future as well. It has been great fun, and I'm really grateful to you for giving us the opportunity to work with you. So good evening, everybody. My name's Russell, and I'm the CEO and founder of a company called RS Academics. And it's a great pleasure to be with you this evening and to welcome you to this conference on my behalf, if you like. RS Academics exists to help schools thrive. That's our mission. That's what drives us to do everything we do. And that's why over the last 20 years now, we've built up a team of about 80 experts, and we help schools in 3 main ways. In no particular order, we help leaders and governors with their strategic planning. particularly to help make sure their schools are strong businesses and are secure financially. We also offer a range of services that help schools provide a happy learning community to their students and also to staff and parents. But of most relevance to this evening, and indeed to this week, is the third thing that we do, and that's to help schools benefit from outstanding leadership and governance, particularly with recruitment. So in the UK, my colleagues and I at RS Academics, we now handle more than half of all the UK independent school headships, and quite a lot of the deputy headships as well. And we're also being asked to manage an increasing number of senior hires in the state sector and internationally. And in all of these situations, what we're trying to do is to find, obviously, the best candidates, to ensure that the candidates are well informed, that they're motivated and that they're well prepared. And we advise the governors as best we can, so that they can make sure they make the best appointment in the best way. And what we've come to realize, therefore, is that we can help our client schools thrive in a different way. We can help them thrive by helping them become more diverse. We want to help them do that by ensuring that their leaders are recruited fairly, and that they're recruited fairly from diverse candidate pools, and particularly through our partnership with All in Education, that Johan is from, and we'll be speaking to in a minute. But working with Johan and his colleagues, we want to make sure that the environment in which those leaders work or go on to work is as inclusive and equitable as possible. As Alana said earlier, and as I think we all know, the leadership of schools is not as diverse as it should be, whether it's the independent sector in the UK, the state sector in the UK, or the international private sector. In none of those sectors, I'm sorry to say, is the leadership of schools as diverse as it should be. And yet, we believe very, very strongly that our client schools will be better schools if they are more diverse. They'll be more exciting, they'll be more creative, they'll be fairer, they'll be more rewarding, and they'll be more inspiring, particularly for students, but also for staff, parents, for governors, and the community they serve. And that's why my colleagues and I are so pleased to be part of this event and to be working with Alana, Penny, and their colleagues at All in Education, at BAMEed, and also with Johan and Louise at All in Education. So if you are looking to secure promotion, we want to share our considerable expertise with you, so that you have the very, very best chance of getting the job that you're looking for. And if you're already a head or a school governor, we want to help you make your leadership teams more diverse, if that's what you're looking to do. In short, we want to help make schools better places for children to learn and grow. That's really what this is about. And we think that this conference is a great way of doing that. So have a great week. And after this conference is over, we do want to continue to support you, okay? Whether you're looking for promotion or whether you're making appointments, we want to carry on working with you. So please do stay in touch with us. Also, I should tell you, get in touch with the other recruitment agencies as well, not just us, but all of the recruitment agencies. We happen to be the ones involved in this conference, but make sure that people know about your ambitions, and certainly please stay in touch with us as your career develops in the future. And thank you very much. And thanks again, Alana, for this opportunity. I'm going to pass straight over to Johan, that I've mentioned already, Johan from All in Education.
Thank you so much, Russell. And thank you, Lana. That was just amazing. It was so inspiring and so insightful. So thank you very much. And thank you everyone for attending the conference today and also this week. Many of you are joining to get further support and inspiration in your career progression. Others are joining to support the wider work to remove barriers to inclusion in our recruitment practices and systems. Some might be joining to do both, but we hugely appreciate you being here. the purpose of this conference goes to the very heart of what All in Education are seeking to achieve greater diversity and to create inclusive workplaces in education. So my name is Johan Jensen. I'm the CEO of All in Education. I founded All in Education in 2017 after spotting a glaring gap in the support available to schools and group of schools to change cultures and practices where staff and pupils can truly be themselves and where there are no barriers to progression or growth based on your background or your identity. So All in Education, we work with senior teams to help them understand the true potential benefits of diversity and inclusion to us all, not just underrepresented groups, but to us all. We therefore work with schools in a deep and collaborative way to achieve real impact and real change. So our work to create inclusive systems, processes, and behaviors has already generated real impact, with some schools increasing their overall number of minority ethnic teaching staff by 15% in 1 year, and increasing the number of minority ethnic leaders by 10% in the same period. So diversity and inclusion for me has been a passion since college when I moved to Britain from Sweden. Throughout my career, I have worked in and out of the education sector to achieve equality, equity, and inclusion. And as a white gay man and father of my adopted daughter who is mixed race, I'm acutely aware of the barriers and the privileges that exist in our society, the barriers and privileges that fundamentally influences our well-being, our growth, innovation, and outcomes. However, I still have lots to learn, and I will always keep on listening. And to partner up with BAMEed and RS Academics to make this conference a reality is, to me, a critical step to work to support minority ethnic diverse educators and their career progression, and crucially to support senior leaders and governors with the responsibility for ensuring our schools are inclusive of all and not just some. So I want to thank you all, and I'm really hoping and also that I can contribute to you having a really exciting and really insightful conference week this week. Thank you.